You grip the club, you stand over the ball, and something in your body already knows this swing is going to go wrong before the club ever moves. I spent years like that, slicing into the trees, topping the ball 20 feet, paying for lessons that only made me think harder and swing worse. But here is what I found buried in the writing of a man who played championship golf on one leg. The golf swing was never meant to be a machine you build from 20 moving parts. It was meant to be one single feeling, and that feeling was quietly replaced by an entire industry that profits when you stay confused. There is a book from 1952, written by a former club maker who lost half his right leg in the trenches of the First World War, that holds the whole thing in about one sentence. By the end of this, you will hold it too. And you will not need a coach, a launch monitor, or a single dollar of new equipment. You already own everything you need. Some of it is probably in your pocket right now. Let me take you back to the first time I felt it. I was standing on a cheap driving range on a gray Tuesday, the kind where you have the whole place to yourself and a bucket of scuffed yellow balls. I had just watched a video that told me to keep my left arm straight, rotate my hips, load my weight, lag the club, and shallow the shaft. I tried to do all of it at once. The ball dribbled off the mat, and my hands stung like I had hit a fence post. And I remember thinking, plain as day, people were playing this game beautifully 100 years ago without any of these words. So how did they do it? That question sent me down a hole I did not climb out of for months. Because here is the first strange thing I noticed. If you go back and look at how golf was actually taught before the modern teaching business took over, the instruction was almost embarrassingly simple. The old Scottish professionals, the men who grew up caddying on the links before 1900, barely spoke in mechanics at all. They talked about rhythm, they talked about swinging, they handed a boy a club and told him to make a smooth pass at the ball over and over until his own body found the motion. And those boys grew into some of the finest strikers of the golf ball who ever lived. Now, compare that to today. The average golfer takes lessons, watches hundreds of hours of video, buys training aids, and still cannot break 100. The National Golf Foundation has tracked average scores for decades. And here's the part that should stop you cold. With all the modern coaching, all the perfectly engineered clubs, all the technology, the average score of the everyday golfer has barely improved in 50 years. 50 years. Billions of dollars poured into equipment and instruction, and the ordinary player shoots about the same number he shot in the early 1970s. That does not happen by accident. That happens when the thing being sold is not actually the thing that works. But I am getting ahead of myself. Because when I first read that scores had not improved, I did not think someone buried the truth. I thought maybe the truth was just hard. Maybe golf really is that difficult. Therefore, I did what any stubborn person does. I decided to find the oldest, plainest instruction I could get my hands on and test it against everything modern I had been told. And that is when I ran into the man on one leg. His name was Ernest Jones. He was born in England in 1887, and before the war he was a young golf professional, already a fine player, working at a club and making clubs by hand the way they did back then. In 1916, in the fighting of the First World War, a grenade took off his lower right leg. He woke up in a hospital bed, a professional golfer with one leg, and by every reasonable expectation, his playing days were finished. Here is what he did instead. Later that same year, on one leg, balancing on crutches at first and then on a wooden limb, Ernest Jones went out and shot an 83 over 18 holes. Then he did better. Playing on one leg, he shot scores in the 70s. He once went around a full course in 72, which is level par for most courses, standing on a single leg. Now sit with that for a second, because I did. Everything the modern lesson tells you the swing depends on, Ernest Jones did not have. He could not load his weight into a strong right side and drive off it. He could not make that big athletic hip turn and clear his lower body through the ball. He had one leg, all the power moves, all the ground force, all the lower body mechanics that cost you a fortune in lessons, gone. and he still struck the ball like a champion. So either Ernest Jones was a miracle, or almost everything we are told the swing requires is not actually where the swing comes from. He spent the rest of his life answering that question. He moved to the United States, set up as a teacher in New York, and over the next several decades, he taught tens of thousands of people. He wrote it all down in a book published in 1952 called Swing the Clubhead. And the whole of his teaching, everything he proved standing on that one leg, comes down to an idea so simple that when I finally understood it, I actually laughed out loud on the range. But I need to build up to it the right way, because if I just tell you the sentence, you will nod and forget it, the same way I did the first 3 times I read it. You have to feel why it matters first. So let me tell you what happened when I tried to unlearn everything. The hardest part was not learning something new. It was getting rid of the noise already in my head. I had been taught to think of the swing as a sequence. First this, then that, then the other thing. And Ernest Jones said something that cut right through it. He said, you cannot make a sequence of separate positions add up to a swing any more than you can make a smooth line out of a row of dots. A swing is one continuous motion, or it is nothing. He had a favorite way of proving it. He would ask a student to think about all the little muscles and joints involved in walking, the exact angle of the ankle, the firing of this muscle, then that one, the shift of the hip, the swing of the arm. And he would point out that if you actually tried to walk by, consciously controlling each of those parts in order, you would fall flat on your face. You walk beautifully because you do not think about the parts. You think about going forward, and your body organizes the parts for you. The golf swing, he insisted, is exactly the same. And the modern lesson, by breaking it into 20 conscious parts, was making people fall on their faces. On purpose or not, it was teaching a way that could not work. That was the first crack in the wall for me, because I realized the reason my range sessions felt like torture was not that I was a bad athlete, it was that I had been handed an impossible instruction. Nobody can control 20 things at once in under 2 seconds. The full golf swing, from the moment the club starts back to the moment it strikes the ball, happens in about 1 second, sometimes less. There is no time to think your way through it. There never was. Therefore, the whole approach of building the swing piece by piece, the approach I had paid for again and again, was fighting against the 1 second of reality where the swing actually lives. And that is where the story turns from a puzzle into something that made me a little angry, because I started asking the obvious next question. If the simple way worked, if a one-legged man could prove it in 1916 and teach it for 40 years, why is that not how everyone learns golf today? Why did I have to dig through an out-of-print book to find it when I had been handed complicated mechanics for free everywhere I looked? Follow the money, and it gets uncomfortable fast. A feeling cannot be sold to you twice. Once you have it, it is yours forever, and you never need the seller again. But a mechanical checklist can be sold to you your entire life. There is always one more position to fix, one more fault in your takeaway, one more angle that is off by a few degrees. The modern instruction model, and I say this as someone who spent real money inside it, works best for the people selling it when you never quite arrive. When you are always one lesson away, think about the training aids alone. There are devices to hold your arm in place, straps to bind your elbows, sticks to fix your plane, weighted clubs, alignment tools, gadgets that beep when you do it wrong. The golf training aid business is worth hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And every one of those products depends on the belief that the swing is a complicated machine you must assemble from the outside using tools. Ernest Jones needed none of it. His most famous teaching aid cost about a nickel, and I will tell you exactly what it was before we finish. Because you can build it tonight, and it might be the most important thing you take from me. But first, I want to talk to you directly, and I mean the one of you who has already half decided this is not for you. Maybe you are not even a serious golfer. Maybe you play twice a year at a company outing and you spend the whole round embarrassed. Maybe your knees are not what they were, or your back complains when you bend, and you have quietly told yourself the good swing belongs to younger, more athletic people. Maybe you are watching this thinking it sounds interesting, but it is not really for someone like you. This next part is exactly for you, because the entire point of what Ernest Jones proved is that the good swing does not belong to the young and the athletic. He proved it with half a leg missing. What he taught takes strain off your body, not adds it, because a swing built on rhythm and the natural weight of the club head is a swing your body can make at any age without forcing anything. So here is something you can do today, in your living room, in your kitchen, in the backyard, with a club you already own or even without one. And it will teach your hands the single most important thing. Take your club and hold it upside down. Grip it by the head, down near the metal, so the light grip end is where the ball would be. Now swing it slowly, back and through, letting it whoosh through the air. Listen for the sound. Because the shaft is now light and the head is in your hands, you will feel almost nothing pulling on you, and the whoosh will be weak and early. Now flip it back the right way, hold it normally, and swing again at the same easy pace. Feel that? Feel the head pulling out away from you, wanting to sling itself through the bottom of the arc? That pull is the entire secret. That is the club head swinging. That heavy feeling at the far end of the shaft, tugging against your fingers, is the exact sensation Ernest Jones spent his life teaching people to notice and trust. If you want to go deeper into this history before we continue, I did put everything I found into a written guide. It's called First Swing, and it's the starting point. Deeper Fixes goes further into the specific patterns that keep ordinary golfers stuck, and Full System brings the whole method together in one place. All three are linked in the description below, and you can read as much or as little as you need. But let's keep pulling on this thread, because the story gets stranger before it gets clearer. Most golfers never feel it, because they are gripping so tight and thinking so hard that they strangle it. They fight the club instead of letting it swing. Do that little flip drill 10 times, and you have already felt more truth about the golf swing than a month of position lessons will give you. Now try one more thing. Still in your living room. Make a slow swing and hum a steady, even beat while you do it. The same tempo going back as coming down, smooth and unhurried. Do not try to hit anything hard. Just let the motion be one connected sweep back and through, like the pendulum on an old clock. That evenness, that unbroken rhythm, is the second half of the whole game. Not power, not force, rhythm carrying a swinging weight. If you do only those two things, feel the head pull and keep the rhythm even, you will strike the ball better this weekend than you have in years. I promise you that from my own experience, standing on that gray range, the day it finally clicked, because let me tell you about that day, since it is the reason I trust every word of this. I had been trying the Ernest Jones ideas for about 2 weeks, mostly failing, mostly slipping back into my old checklist under pressure. Then one evening, tired, not really trying anymore, I just decided to swing the thing like I did not care. I felt the head, I kept the beat, I let my body follow the swing instead of leading it, and the ball came off the club with a sound I had never made before, a soft, solid click, and it climbed into the air dead straight and kept going. Then I did it again, and again. I hit maybe 15 of the purest shots of my life in a row, doing less than I had ever done, thinking about almost nothing, just swinging the club head. I stood there a little stunned. All those years, all that money, all that grinding effort, and the answer was to do less, not more. To feel one thing instead of managing 20. But here's where it gets even deeper, because I did not stop at Ernest Jones. His idea sent me looking for others who taught the same forgotten truth, and I found that he was not alone. He was part of a lost lineage. There was Percy Boomer, another British professional, who wrote a book in 1942 called On Learning Golf. Boomer taught golf in France before the war, and he insisted the whole thing had to be learned by feel, not by position. He had a famous image. He said you should feel as though you are swinging inside a barrel, your hips turning but not sliding, everything controlled by sensation rather than thought. He warned decades ago that golfers were being ruined by too much conscious analysis. He wrote that the moment you try to control the golf swing by thinking about the movements of your body, you have lost the swing. That was more than 80 years ago, and the warning was already there. Go back further and you find the same thing in the words of Harry Vardon, the greatest player of the very early 1900s, the man whose grip nearly everyone in the world still uses today. Vardon won the Open Championship 6 times, more than anyone in history, and when he described his own swing, he did not talk in machine parts. He talked about ease, about not pressing, about letting the club do the work. He famously said that many players ruin their game by trying to hit too hard, and that the secret was to swing smoothly within yourself. Do you see the pattern forming? The best players and teachers, going back over a century, kept saying the same quiet thing. Swing, do not hit. Feel the club head. Keep the rhythm. Let the body respond to the swing instead of forcing the swing out of the body. And somewhere along the way, that message got buried under a mountain of complexity that happens very conveniently to be far more profitable to sell. And I want to be careful here, because I am not telling you that studying the swing is evil or that good instructors are con artists. Many of them care deeply, but the system they work inside rewards complexity. It rewards the endless lesson, the new gadget, the position you never quite master, the simple, free, permanent truth that you could learn in an afternoon and own forever is very bad for business. So it drifts to the edges, it goes out of print, it survives only in old books and in the hands of a few teachers who refuse to let it die. Which brings me back to the nickel. I told you Ernest Jones had a teaching aid that cost about 5 cents, and that it might be the most important thing you take from me. Here it is, exactly as he used it, and this is the piece I could not find in any modern lesson, the thing I finally dug out of the pages of that 1952 book and a handful of accounts from people who studied with him directly. Take a common pocket knife, or any small weight about the size of a house key, something with a little heft that will not hurt anyone. Take an ordinary handkerchief or a piece of cloth or even a shoelace, roughly the length from your fingers to your elbow. Tie the weight to one end. Now hold the free end between your thumb and first 2 fingers the way you would hold a pencil and let the weight dangle. Here is what you do. You swing that weight back and through using only your fingers and hand, and you watch it. That is the whole device. That is what Ernest Jones used to teach champions and beginners alike, standing on one leg in his New York studio for decades. And this is why it is genius, because it teaches you 3 things at once that no amount of talking ever could. First, you cannot make the weight swing by jerking it. If you snatch at it, it goes crazy, it wobbles, it collapses. The only way to make that little weight swing in a smooth, wide arc is to lead it gently and let the weight itself pull the string tight. That is the exact feeling of the club head. The head is the weight, the shaft is the string. Your hands lead, and the head swings out and does the work. You feel it in your fingers, undeniable, in about 10 seconds. Second, it teaches you where the power really comes from. Watch the weight at the bottom of its swing. It is moving fastest right there at the lowest point, exactly where the ball would be. You did not have to force that speed. The swinging motion created it, and it arrived on its own at the bottom right on time. That is what a golf swing is supposed to do. The speed is not something you throw at the ball. It is something you allow to build and then arrive precisely at the bottom, all by itself. Third, and this is the part that undid me, you cannot do it while thinking about your body. Try to swing that weight and manage your shoulders and your hips and your wrists at the same time, and you will kill it instantly. The weight only swings freely when your mind is quiet and focused on the one thing, the swinging of the weight at the end of the string. It physically forces you to stop the overthinking that ruins the real swing. It trains the quiet mind and the feeling hands in the same motion. I made mine with an old key and a bootlace the same night I read about it. I stood in my kitchen swinging that little weight back and through, watching it trace a smooth arc, feeling the tug at the bottom. And then I picked up a real club and swung it, and my hands already knew. They had felt the truth on the string, and they carried it straight into the club. The club head swung, the tempo held. The ball, next time I was on the range, came off exactly the way it had on my magic evening, except now I understood why. That is the method. A weight on a string swung by the fingers, teaching your hands to feel the club head and your mind to get out of the way. A man with one leg taught it to thousands. He wrote it down in 1952, and it works today. For you, for your bad back, or your stiff knees, or your 2 rounds a year game. Because it does not depend on strength or youth or expensive gear. It depends on a feeling that has been inside your hands the whole time, waiting for someone to show you how to notice it. Everything else, the loading, the shallowing, the lag, the ground force, all the words that made me sting my hands on that gray Tuesday, those are just descriptions of what naturally happens when you swing the club head correctly. They are the shadow of the real thing, mistaken for the thing itself. The old teachers knew you cannot build the motion out of its own shadows. You make the swing, and the positions take care of themselves, the same way you walk without ever commanding your ankles. So here is what I want you to do this week. Make the string and wait tonight. Swing it for 2 minutes while you watch television. Feel the pull at the bottom, then take a club, hold it loose, hum your steady beat, and swing the club head through the ball like you are simply passing the head through a spot in the grass. Do less, feel more, and watch what happens to a game you were ready to give up on. What I really recovered on that range was not a golf tip. It was the feeling of being trusted with the truth again, instead of being sold a problem I could never solve. That is what they quietly took, and that is what you can take back. If you are the kind of person who suspects that the simplest answer often got buried because someone made more money keeping you dependent, then you already belong here, because that instinct is exactly right more often than not. Now I want to hear from you. Try the flip drill, the one where you hold the club upside down and then flip it and feel the head pull at the bottom. Then tell me in the comments in one sentence whether you felt that tug the first time or whether it took a few swings to notice it. Just write felt it or took a few. I read those, and I want to know how many of you feel it right away, because I did not, and I have a theory about why. If this reached you, follow along, because this channel is for people quietly taking back the practical knowledge that got buried under 100 years of selling. And next time, I am going to show you the forgotten putting method that a blind man used to sink putts most sighted players miss. And once you see how he did it, you will never stand over a short putt the same way again. So that's the overview. But inside, we don't stop here. We continue Ernest Jones' one feeling swing, drill by drill, right where this video left off, until it's yours for good. And if something isn't clicking, you can ask me directly. A real person, me, answers you myself. You won't be alone either. Folks like you are already inside the Old Ways Almanac. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen. You can cancel anytime,